Okay, so today we're going to do a video tutorial on that's my iron, on the Return to the Wild Black Bear laser cut kit. So I'm going to do the applique portion of this in the tutorial and kind of go over all the steps if you are doing any of my laser kits. So this is what the kit looks like when you get it. What you're seeing here on the front is your background, your inner border, your outer border binding. You got your pattern. Now, if you buy a kit, you do have an option on my website of getting one with or without a pattern. You will need a pattern. So if it is your first kit and you do not already have a pattern, make sure you purchase the kit with the pattern, whether it's from me or from one of the shops that carry my designs. If you get one without a pattern, you'll see this on the front and it says pattern sold separately. And this is just saying it's the laser kit, but with a pattern, usually I put the pattern on top. So you'll see there's a pattern in there. When you get one, if you have the pattern already, you only need one pattern. So if you've already purchased it somewhere else, or you're making a second one, you just need one pattern for your kit. So as many of these as you want, but just one of these. The back of this will tell you a little bit about the laser pre-cut kits that I use Light Steam-A-Seam 2 as my permanent bond fusible. I do have some information on how to do fusible web if you're not familiar with it and you're going to cut things yourself. I do have a tips page on my website that goes over how to do fusible. And that is if you can use it for this process too, but it also goes through the steps of tracing your own appliques and going through that. That I've already pre-washed all of your applique pieces. So fabrics though that are not laser cut, such as your background borders and binding, these have not been pre-washed. I very highly recommend that you do that. Some people don't, but batiks are notorious for bleed, and I use pretty much all batiks. I don't think I use anything that isn't a batik in any of my kits, and they can and will bleed. Not all of them, but sometimes ones you don't expect will bleed end up bleeding more than you can imagine. So I highly recommend rinse these in your sink if you want. You can throw them in a wash cycle in your washer and then put them in the dryer. That will do all the blocking and all of the bleeding that is necessary, and shrinkage and everything. If you throw it through the wash, if you're doing it, if you have really small pieces, you can always just rinse them with hot water in your sink and just make sure that the water's running clear, and that gets rid of your bleed issue, and then throw them in your dryer and let the shrinking happen there and the blocking. So you don't have any issues with warping later on if you do have to wash it, and you don't have to worry that when you go to steam stuff, which applies a lot of heat and liquid, that you don't have things start bleeding on you. So that is a super bummer if that happens, and I've had it happen. Using the appliques. So if the applique sheets have been folded in packaging, and I have a few pieces, this is the kit I just wanted to show you. I have some that have been already disassembled and I've labeled everything. So I'm just gonna bring my little travel ironing board over here and explain as I do this one. If you have pieces that have been folded in packaging, and I have one of them here, this is the dark gray piece. It has a fold in it. You don't have to do anything about this. Once you remove the paper, you won't really see the fold in the fabric, and once you do your steaming and ironing, it should press away. But for some people, it's bothersome. I don't really care myself, but if it is something that's bothering you, or you really are having an issue with that fold, you can take your iron, have it on a very low heat, and just be careful, because you don't want to end up accidentally getting glue on your iron, and sometimes that paper is lifting from the appliques and you don't want to hit the iron or hit the glue with your iron. So, but if you're gentle, you can just press lightly down with your iron and lift up. Now you might notice, you can kind of see an iron mark there. That is warming all that glue up, and that will happen if you put it on when you put your iron on there. Some of that translucency can show up in the paper. That's okay, but you don't want to do it for very long, because we don't want to overheat the glue. Just that quick press is all I need. And you can also do it from this side, but don't do it from both, just one or the other. But that presses that out pretty flat. Now, sometimes you might have a piece, and I have another one here that's been folded. it's also like it's in these big pieces, and you can just also press them with your hand to just sort of flatten them out a little bit. And that usually does the job enough for me. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to want to do is you want to label all your shapes. I'm actually going to get this kit out of the way. And get this out of my way. So I've got all my appliques taken out, and I've gone through and I've labeled them all. So what do you want to label these? How do you know what to label them? Well, grab your pattern. Here's my pattern. Here's my layout guide. It has my bear on it. And all of these pieces are all my little appliques. So if you were to trace these yourself, this is what you would be laying your Stema seam on, tracing all your shapes out, and then cutting all those shapes out. If you have a laser cut kit, you don't have to do any of the tracing and cutting yourself. It's already been done for you by the machine. So here's my applique sheet, and I have all the pieces have been labeled. So 12 is 12, 27, 27, 2, 2, so on and so forth. And I've done that with all the different appliques. So like here's this one, I've numbered everything, and I've got them all ready to go. So now when I go to assemble everything, I've got all my pieces already labeled. So that is one of the main steps you want to accomplish before we get going, so you know what's what. And then let's see, anything else? Okay, so then it just goes through about popping them out of the sheet. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take my pattern and go over a couple of the steps here that we're going to do with the pattern. So step number 1, all my patterns, I tell you to pre-wash all your fabrics to block and remove your excess dye. Then you're wanting to cut from selvage to selvage your background. So that's your background piece here, and I've already got mine cut, the 12.5 by 23. Here it is. And then we're wanting to, if you're doing an individual wall hanging, you want to do your inner border, outer border bindings. This one can be combined with some of the other designs. So if you're doing something that's a combination one, you don't want to do that part because obviously you're going to add it to other things and you might have a different border around the outside. This one, I'm just doing as a single. And so then tracing all your appliques, well, you don't have to do that part, right? Because you've got a laser kit. So you don't have to do step 3, but you do want to label everything. So that is the step, that is what you'll do beforehand. And now we're actually going to just jump right in and start assembling this bear. So you're going to want a nonstick pressing sheet if you haven't got one already. And it's this one is actually part of a huge, turn on my light table, part of a huge one that I had that I cut down to a smaller size because it was like too big to manage easily. But I started out with one that was about a 13 by 17, and that is a good size to start with. This bear is pretty big, and so a 18 by 20 would be a good size for him. He's going to have to be a little bit of an angle, but this one, which I cut this big piece into some smaller ones, I left this big strip because this bear will fit, and a lot of my other ones will fit very nicely right under here, like, whoops, sorry, bumped my camera. Straighten you guys out for a second here real quick. Okay. So he fits really nicely right underneath the pressing sheet, and I can just assemble him all as one piece. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the body, and we're going to fuse these sections, and we're actually going to fuse them separately. So we're going to do the body first, the body of him, which is pieces 1 through 12, and then we're going to do the face pieces 13 through 26. So I'm going to grab all my little bear pieces, turn on my light table, and that is another thing that you're going to want. If you don't have a light table and you're not ready to invest in one, you can always use like a glass table and put a lamp underneath, or you could use even a window and just kind of clip these together and then tape it against a window, that will work. I've done both of those. But if you are going to get into doing a lot of these, you might want to go ahead and invest in a light table. This one here is a 18 by 24 size. It's great for almost all my designs because most of them are going to be 24 by something as far as the width of the paper goes. So they usually fit within that. And then but they have a smaller one that I think is 18 by like 12 or something around that size. And that is a really nice starter size for people. And there's other brands out there too. I'm actually going to lay this guy sideways just for the camera angle so that you guys can see what I'm doing well here. So I'm going to start with the body of the bear. So I'm doing pieces 1 through 12. Now, one of the things that you can do as far as your pieces go, you can keep them in the sheets if you want, or you can pop them all out and have them loose and arranged. I usually will arrange it right off to the side here. Pieces like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all in a row so that you know where they are and you can easily grab them and go. When I'm doing laser kits, a lot of the times I just sort of leave them in the sheet, but sometimes I spend more time looking for a piece than if I'd already have them arranged off to the side. So either way works. And when I used to cut everything, hand cut everything, of course, all my pieces would already be out. They wouldn't be in a sheet. I would have already cut them all out. And so I'd have all these loose pieces. And what I would do is lay them off to the side in order. So that way I could grab them really quickly. And I would know if I lost one, because that has happened. Like, where's number 12? I can't find it. And then I end up cutting another one. And then later I find number 12 lying on the floor somewhere. Okay, so we're going to start with piece 1. And we're working on the body first. I'm going to move this over just so that I have some space for arranging my branch and stuff later. So just go ahead and peel that paper off the back of your piece. And I'm lining up this edge here with the layout guide. And so I'm getting my little fur pieces all lined up on that edge. Now number 2. Okay, and number 2 is under this dark area. Sometimes when, even with a light table, and I turn my table down a little bit when I'm doing these tutorials because it's harder for you guys to see what I'm doing. But if I wasn't turning, or if I wasn't doing this as a tutorial, I would turn my laser machine all the way up. So I can really see my light table all the way up so that I can really see all of the drawing behind this. Especially on darker fabrics, it's harder to see through them. I've even turned off another thing. If you're having a hard time, even with your light table all the way up, you can also turn the lights off above you and around you, and so that the only light in the room is coming from the light table, and that really helps shine through and be able to see really well through your pressing sheet and your fabric. So one of the things I'll do is, if I am having a hard time seeing where it is, I'll hold my pressing sheet in place and peel up and see, oh, here's number 2. Okay. And I kind of see where that top edge is. And if I just keep my eye focused there, I see it through that dark pretty well enough to at least get my applique, I think, in place. Hang on. This is another thing I'll do. I'll go like this. Okay, so it goes like that. Keep it in that same position. And there we go. Number 2 is in place. Okay, number 3 is out of the black here. And when you go to pop these out, you just kind of want to give them a little tug. Now, sometimes a thread will pull out, or you'll have it where it's really holding in the sheet kind of well in a spot. You don't want to pull too hard. So if that happens, take your little thread scissors and just snip any threads that might be sticking out, or snip it out of the sheet. If it was stuck in there and this one little spot is holding, instead of giving it a big yank and possibly pulling threads out everywhere, just snip it. And so I keep my little thread scissors handy in case I have any of those issues. And so again, I'm going to peel the paper off. Now, another little trick that I do is I fold the fabric towards the paper. And a lot of the times, and let's see if you can see that, the paper will crease and fold, and it will keep that crease and pop away from the fabric. So that's a little trick that I do to get the paper to give me a spot to peel off more easily. Okay, and then again, I can't really see through there so well, so I'm going to lift this up and I can see, okay, the piece goes right here, and I'm going to lay it back down, make sure I'm lined up, because sometimes I do, you know, wiggle. And then I kind of keep my eye where that was, and I can still see that line through there pretty well, well enough to get it in place. Okay, so now number 4, which is also out of this black, so I'm just kind of giving it a tug, kind of going around, pulling on it. Fold that edge over, peel that paper away. And so number 4 goes behind his head. So what I'm going to do, and I have a little thread sticking out here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up, and I'm looking like over here on this little fur. I'm lining that up, making sure up here on his head, it'll line up here too. There we go. And pressing, I had a little fold there, so I'm just kind of pressing that fold flap and then letting it flow down. And actually, as I go down here, the fur, I can see through here where that's supposed to go, and it's lining up really good. Now, if it isn't perfect right here, don't worry about that. It probably won't be exactly perfect where these line up, and you're going to have a branch that's going to cover that edge there. So, okay, so we've done number 4. Let's find number 5. That's going to be part of his, we're doing part of his ear section now. So do the little fold. Sometimes too, when you do that little fold maneuver, sometimes it works in one spot and really easily, and other times you do it and it's like, gosh, that paper does not want to release. Try another area, because that happens sometimes to me. I'll have to try a few different spots. Okay, so again, I'm lining up this outer edge, this little fur, to make sure that that is in the right place. That helps me position it well. 6. Find that 6. Let me see. Okay, I think 6 is, yep, in my lightest gray here, light gray. And sometimes too, if you can't figure out like, what is it? Where is number 6? Sometimes if you look at the picture, you can go, oh, it's a really light piece. Oh, okay. And then go look for that color, because once in a while I'm just like, where is that piece? Oh, I'm looking in the wrong colors. Okay, 7 is in this darker gray. And so 7 is another one that's a little hard to see, but I look over this way and I can see, okay, it comes right up around this edge and frames his ear. Okay, 8. Here's 8. 8 is back in the little blueberry. And again, I'm going to make sure everything is staying in place. Hold it down, kind of flip up and look. Okay, so 8, there's an edge down here, and it just goes right up against, so follow that top edge, and it lays right on there. 9 is again this lighter gray, which is also in the center. And because they're darker colors on this guy, it is harder to see through there. 10 is again in this dark gray. Pop that out. Peel that paper off. And you shouldn't have to force the appliques at all. So if you've laid something down and it's not wanting to go in the right place, it might be that where you started it is off a little bit and you'll want to twist it, you don't want to twist it. You don't want to try to force it. You might need to lift it up, move it a little bit, and then put it back down, because if they're positioned correctly, they should just kind of fall right in place. And if they're not, then, like as an example, and I know it's harder to see because this guy is so dark. Let's see if I can lighten this up even a little bit more so that it's easier for you guys. First, darken it. That's still, nope, dark. Almost have the light table completely dark. Okay. So, as an example with this like little earpiece, that I just put down, if I put it down like this, and this is lined up, and I put it and it's way over here, well, that's not fitting, right? It's like that. And I don't want to try to force it over here because I'm going to give myself a little wrinkle. What I need to do is lift it back up and twist it a little to where it's in the right position here, so that when it lays down, it should just fall right where it's supposed to. If it's not kind of falling in that way, it's probably that it's just not quite positioned correctly. And you just lift it up and move it back down. Because right now, the glue that's under there, it hasn't been warmed up. It hasn't had any heat on it. Any of these could be lifted back up right now. Because we haven't done any fusing yet. So they're all maneuverable at this point. Okay, now I forget what number we were on. 10. Okay, so we need to do 11 and 12, which is going to be part of his face here. And we're going to do the other section of his face separate from this. And part of the reason for that is because he is so dark. And this is actually the final piece of the blueberry. That dark blue blueberry. Because he is so dark, it's hard to see through all these layers, and trying to position his face correctly is going to be even more challenging. And so really quick, just because I know I darkened it up for you guys, but I need to see through here really well for just a few minutes. So 11, okay, 11 is going down here, and I just want to get him positioned correctly. Again, I'm going to okay, that's the way I go. So I'm going to put this back on there. That's the way it goes. And I can see through there. I'm getting in the right place. 12 is this dark gray. I'm just kind of pulling and tugging all the way around to get all those little fur pieces out. Peel that off. And now this one is kind of nice. You can see, and it's hard for, I'm sure you guys to see because I got it up, but I can see where the little spiky fur is up here at top. So I'm going to line up that spiky fur up at the top here and then let it just fall down. Okay, so now I'm going to darken my table up again. And so now I've got my body done. So this is all we're doing for the body right now. We're going to do the face as a separate section. So here, we'll do the face right next to it. So the next part is do face pieces 13 through 26. So we're doing that as a separate section so that we can see all the little tiny pieces so we get them in the right place, because you don't want to end up with an eye in a weird position or the nose off or something. So once we get this done, we'll fuse it as one applique, lift it up, and stick it in the middle of his face. Okay, so let's start with number 13. Where's number 13? Okay, here we go. 13 and 14 are right next to each other here. So we're building the face now. And what's kind of fun as you do these is like once we get to this point, all of a sudden he's going to be looking at you. So this is just this body, faceless body back here. But in a few minutes, he starts to come alive. 14, so now 15. I'm just taking a look, trying to find my number 15. Here it is. 15's in this light gray. So 15 is going to be, and I'm going to do the positioning right here in this middle so that I know that I have this right, and just letting the rest fall where it wants to. I'm not trying to force anything. 16 is going to be part of his eye. So which eye? Let's look. Holding this in place. Okay, it's over here. And I can see that it goes right up where this kind of circular part is. Now, if you put this in and then you look at it and you think, oh, that doesn't look right, you can always move it. You can always adjust it a little bit right now. We haven't put any heat on this. We haven't done any ironing. It is completely adjustable still. Okay, so that was 16, right? Yep, okay. 17 is this little iris. And again, I'm gonna hold this in place, flip it up and kind of see which way is it going. Okay, it's like a little moon and it's going like that. So then I can just sort of place it in there. Now, if I get done with this and I think, oh, that looks weird, I need to move that little moon a little bit, I can totally do that. But now we have one eye looking at us, right? So 17, 18 is going to be the other, working on the other eye. And I'm going to flip it up and kind of look, and I can see that it goes right in this little area here. And then 19 is that other little pupil. Whoop, he popped right out at me. They're so small. They're just tiny little pieces. If you're having any trouble with these tiny pieces, I have had ladies tell me that they've used, on little bitty pieces, that they've used tweezers. Thank you. And I have tried that. It doesn't really work for me, but I've had a lot of people tell me that they really like the tweezers for holding on to those little pieces. So it's something that definitely you can try if you find that those are difficult. Okay, so that was 19, right? Yes. Okay, so now we're doing 20, which is this little single light brown piece, this little muzzle. Okay, and so 20, I'm actually going to line up right here on the bottom. And then again, kind of let those fall where they want to fall. Don't try to force anything. 21 is here. Okay, and since I turned my light table almost off, I'm going to just lighten it up a little bit so I can see through here, so I can put this in the right place. Okay, making sure I didn't bump anything. Just double check myself. Okay, 21. Which way does it go? Like this? That looks like that's right. 22. Gotta find it. Where are you, 22? What does it look like? Let me look. Oh, it's dark. Okay. So again, look at my picture. What's 22? It looks like it's part of this dark gray, and it is. Here it is. Sometimes looking at the picture can be really helpful. Unless you already have them laid out and then you just grab it. 23 is in this kind of amber color. And I have a little thread, actually 2 little threads sticking out there, and they will definitely be noticeable on this black face. So I'm going to make sure to lift that up. Okay, and 23, if you look on the picture here, comes right up to the point on his nose and down here. So I can look in my layout and see right where that goes. So there's 23, 24, this one wants to give me a problem. There we go, 24. And now it's getting to be harder to see, but turn my light table up again, as bright as I can get it. Oop, that turned it down. Bright as it will go. Yeah, there we go. And now I can see that. So 24. Oh, and then you move it over slightly. Just a little bit. There we go. Maybe, nope, a little bit like right like that. There we go. 24, 25. Where are you? 25 is black. Here we go. And 26 will be the one that makes everyone be like, I can't find 26 anywhere. You didn't give me a 26. My kit didn't have a 26. Yes, you did. It's right here. It's in the birch tree. It's just this little highlight on his nose. And it's the one that you'll search for. So you watch this, now you know where it is. So that little highlight on his nose. And goes right here. Little shiny little nose. Okay, so now our face is done. And as you can see, now you have this little bear looking at you here. And what we're going to want to do, let me read because sometimes I jump ahead. So we've done our face. So now it says, again, placing the nonstick pressing sheet over the layout guide. I'm sorry. Stop. Go back. Number 4, we did body and face, right? But if I read the instructions, it says place the nonstick pressing sheet over the layout guide. Arrange the bear as follows, lightly fusing each section. So I want to do the lightly fusing, right? I'm going to get my layout guide out of the way just for a moment and grab my little ironing board. And I'm going to lightly fuse. Now, lightly fuse, we are not fusing this permanently right now. We are just warming up the glue to where everything kind of sticks to itself. So we're not putting a bunch of heat and we're not putting it on for very long. You want your iron on about a medium heat. Now you'll notice mine is not on a medium heat, but that's because my iron is kind of cool. So I can put it on a little higher heat and I know I'm not getting too much heat. But if you have an iron that runs hot, put it down low. If you have an iron that runs where the middle is medium, put it there. On mine, I usually knead it up quite a bit towards the max for it to get good enough heat to do this. But we're just doing a gentle fuse, and literally I'm not going to iron like this. Don't do this because your appliques can sometimes catch and peel up and stick to your iron and they are ruined at that point. You will not want to do ironing. We're doing pressing. So we are going to just have our iron above this section, put down, lift up, down, 1, 2, 3, lift up, down, 1, 2, 3, lift up. I'm not even going to worry about his face because this face is attached to this big black piece that's behind everything. I don't even need to worry about it. These aren't going to peel up from this because this is the background, right? But his ears could. So down, 1, 2, 3, lift up. Now his face definitely has lots of little pieces put together and I want to keep that. And this is a chance to take a look at his eyes, take a look at everything, make sure you like it because once you put this heat on his face, you can't adjust anything. So if you're looking at it and you're like, my guy, I don't know, I think like the pupil needs to be lowered slightly, or this one seems like it's off a little bit and I want to turn it, I want to lower it a little bit. Maybe I feel like this one's a little bit wonky. These are the eyes are probably the most important part. Make sure you like where your eyes are because if at this point you put the heat on and then you look at it and go, oh, I don't like that. Now you're going to have a real hard time even adjusting it. You could, but a lot of the times it damages the appliques if you try to lift it once you've put even this light amount of heat on. So make sure you like it. And then when you're like, I'm good. 1, 2, 3, and lift. Now, before we move anything, we want this to cool off. If I try to lift this right now when it's hot, I'm going to likely have things that are going to stick to the applique and they're not going to stick to each other really well. I need to give it just a few minutes to cool. So while we're letting it cool here for a second, I'm going to go ahead and remove my my ironing board. And I'm going to just take a look at what are we going to do next. So next we're going to place the nonstick pressing sheet over the layout guide and arrange and lightly fuse the face group to the body. Okay, so I'm going to move this guy out of the way for just a moment. Get my layout back over here. And actually, I know it's kind of sideways, sort of, but you guys know what, you can see what we're doing here. Okay, I'm laying it back and putting this guy back in place. Now, honestly, it's going to be really hard to see through this again, right? I can turn my table all the way up. It's still really hard to see through that. So what I'm going to do, let's see. I'm going to see if there's any place that's easy to see through. So down here, I can see, you know what I'm going to do? Instead of doing that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stick this right next to, oops, I always hit this thing and turn my thing on. I'm going to stick this right next to it. And actually I'm going to turn it so you guys can see it up high. I'm just going to stick my bear where I can look at my arrangement and I can look at my layout. And now that this is cooled, it's cool back to room temperature, I'm just going to gently peel up. And I'm going to peel it from a few spots. Sometimes if you just peel it right up, that's fine. That might work. But a lot of the times if you kind of start in one, work toward the middle, go from the other side, work toward the middle, then you run less of a risk of things sticking and part of it staying here instead of all coming up with you, because it's just very gently stuck together. Like you can see that is it's not totally fused yet, right? But we don't want it to be fused all the way yet. So I've got my little bear face here and I can see that works really good. Now I'm just going to look on here and kind of arrange him by eyeballing it, right? How does that look? Now you can get your light, turn out the lights in your room, get your light table blasting up, and you probably could see this bottom line. But I'm just going to kind of take a look at him and fuse him, or look at him and lightly set him in place and see, how does that look? Because I think that looks pretty good. It looks like he is about the same distance up here, about the same distance here. He's got a nice little forehead, about 3/8 of an inch around the bottom there, between the bottom of his chin and this little, I guess, double chin. Was that his little double chin? So I think that looks pretty good. So, and I'm going to just check it out and say, yeah, I think that looks great. So now, I'll get this out of the way one more time. And we're going to go ahead, now that I'm happy with it, and I'm going to just, again, lightly fuse it. Just that, press and lift. That's it. And that will just be enough heat to kind of keep his face in place. We don't want it moving around and we don't want it adjusting or anything at this point, right? We want to keep his face together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to lay the background onto the layout guide and arrange the bear, some of the other bear pieces, and we're going to get going on our trunk and finish everything up, right? So the next part, I'm going to set him aside for just a moment. Grab my layout guide again. Turn on my light table. Get my layout guide here. Grab my background. And place that on there. And now I'm centering my background all the way around this rectangle. So it should fit just like really nicely right in there. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to arrange onto the background here is, oh, and you know what else? One thing I'm going to mention just before with your background. So batik prints. Batiks don't really totally noticeably have a right or wrong side, but some batik prints you will notice some differences between one side and the other. This one here, it's hard to see probably for you guys, but there are some tiny little dots in the butterfly. Whoa, excuse me. These little dots, and I see them here in this guy too, this indicates that this is actually the wrong side. If I go to this side, there aren't those little dots in my print, and it's a little bit more vibrant. So, and I just noticed as I laid it down, my butterflies are kind of flying this way. And butterflies fly all over the place, so it doesn't really matter. But I want my butterflies looking like they're kind of flying up. So I'm gonna flip mine over. I want to make sure that I have my right side facing up if there's a noticeable right side. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes you can look at both sides and it's like, gosh, they look exactly the same. But every now and then there's some where, and you usually will see it in the stamping, but sometimes not at all. So, okay, so I've got my butterfly's face flying the way I want. I've got my right side up. And now I'm going to grab my Bear combination. So that's what we just did. That's everything we just did. We're going to peel him off this pressing sheet. So I'm just grabbing the bottom here and gently pulling up. And I'm actually going to grab up here on his ears. And you can't see. Grab up here on both ears where it gets to the head. And I'm just really gently removing him. Now, if stuff sticks where it's like, oh, geez, everything's coming apart. He's sticking and half of his body's wanting to stay there. Well, you might need to put a tiny bit more heat to it. And then again, let it cool before you go messing with it. And then peel it up again. Okay. So now I've got this layout and now I'm going to put him in place. So I'm looking at his ears. I'm going to put his ears in position and just sort of make sure, okay, is the body's coming down the right place? That looks good. That looks good. This little ear is a little bit off. Close enough there. Whoop. Okay. Oh no, I got my ears off. Okay, hold on. Lift it back up. Straighten it back up. It's hard to do this where I'm trying to make it where you guys can see and I can see. I usually get right above it. And I'm doing it kind of from the side here. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Now he's in place. And so just be careful you don't like lift anything and just press him down. And now we're going to put Bear pieces 27 and 28. So I just need to look at which ones those are. Okay, so 27 is over here. 28 is over here. This is part of his hand that's going to be holding on to the branch. And 27 is out of this dark gray. Okay, so I'm going to flip him up. Take a look. Okay, so 27 is going to go like this, right? Put him back down. Make sure he's lined up correctly there. And then, okay, I can see those. Oh, that looks right. 27, and then 28 is part of his hand, and that is the last piece here in your black. That one's really easy to see because there's nothing else around it. Okay, and then next, we're going to do the birch trunk and all the birch pieces A through V. So the birch trunk is this piece here. Take that paper off. And this is just going to get arranged directly onto your background. So it also had some creases in it. If those creases bothered you beforehand, you could have pressed them out. Just going to start up here and kind of line up this edge. And then as I get to these creases, I just kind of use my finger to kind of press them. Once I iron it, they should really flatten out better then. Okay. So, and now birch pieces A through V. So those are going to be all the rest of these little pieces in your dark gray. So we're starting up here at the top, and we're just gonna, it just sort of works its way down. So here's A. And again, put your light table all the way blast it. I'm gonna get my light table up a little bit brighter so I can see a little bit better through there. B. And you see that birch branch, he covered the edge of your bear. C. And if you can't see something, just hold it in place, lift up, take a peek. And a lot of the times when you do that, it's like, oh, I see a whole bunch of them there. You know, like, oh, D, E's this little one over here, and F, so I know where those ones are. Here's E. F. Okay, so now when we're going to do the next set, we can kind of hold it in place, lift it up. G, H, I, J. Okay, got it. So this one had a few little threads, and you'll notice those dark threads on when you have that lighter background like the birch tree. And so I would recommend, if you have any of those little threads that pop up, to just trim them off, because then you would see them more, you know, on the white. If it's like if it was a little black thread sticking out over here onto almost, you know, the blue-black blueberries, you probably won't even see that. But when it's a dark over a light, you definitely will notice it. So trim those off. H, I, and J, which is the bigger one. Okay, so now I'm getting towards the bottom half. I have this big K, L, M. Let's just worry about those ones for right now. K, L, M. And I messed my little bear guy up there, right there. Okay. L, where were you? Here you are. Right over here, coming from the edge of the tree. Oop, move it over. Right to the edge. M. Here we go. M. And then N is kind of a biggie, or bigger one. N is right here. Like so. O. We're getting very close here, almost done. Okay, so O, P, these little guys sometimes can be a pain. They won't want to come off their paper. Fold one side. If one side doesn't work, fold the other side over. Q. Okay, so now let's take a look. We have Q, R, S, T, U, V. Can you guys see that? Yep, okay. And double check every once in a while you're straight, because I find that once in a while I bump it and then I don't always notice, and I start putting things off a little bit, and then when you do notice, you're like, oh man, I put all of those like a 1/4 of an inch off. And then sometimes I'm just like, pull the layout guide out from underneath. Does it look fine? If it looks fine, don't worry about it. They're just little birch markings, you know. It's okay if your birch tree looks slightly different from my birch tree, right? I don't think there's any birch trees that are identical anyhow, so it's fine if yours is a little bit different than mine. U and V. So here's U. U, and she's okay. And V. Let's see here, V. Okay, so the birch tree is now done. So now we're going to do bare pieces 29 through 36. So those are going to be right over here, 30 or 29, 30, 31, 32, and then 33, 34, 35, 36 are these claws here. So let's grab, we don't have very many pieces left here of the bear, so we've got them right here between this one light gray and then this like amber colored one. So first 29, and it's a little harder to see again, but you're going, because you're looking through a few layers of fabric here. So do the same, like hold and look up. Oh, because it's like it's way over here, and I actually can see the tip of that claw right there. So I'm just going to put that tip in. And again, if you find that you need to adjust something a little bit right now, as we're laying these little claws down, you're not fusing anything. So you definitely have the ability to adjust. Okay, so hold on. So hang on here and let me just find, okay. So way up here, we're starting up here, and this is going down. I'm just gonna tilt it. And so this one's a little hard because of how there's so much stuff that's hard to see, but it's going to be way up at the top and it's going over this dark gray. And then 32. Is right here. And you know what? And now I'm going to adjust, because again, everything up here is adjustable and it's hard to see. So sometimes you might have to adjust something. I just had to move that claw down a little bit and then put this other claw up here. Do I like that? I still want to move 29 and 30 down slightly. I'm just going to move both of them down a little bit. There we go. Now I like that a little bit better. And I think that looks more like the picture. Okay, so let's do the claws over here. Now these ones, you can see a little bit easier through here, the points of them, to get them on there. $33. $34. $35. And 36, which has a little thread sticking out. I'm going to take care of that. Okay, So there's the bear, and then the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to do the little branch that's in the middle. So we're going to do leaf A, and then the branch, and then leaves B through N. So I've got my leaves here, got my branch, so we're going to do leaf A. Now we're still going through this, all these layers. So again, it is a little harder to see. I lift up, I take a look. Where's A? Where is A? Here it is, way over here. So I'm going to turn him this way so that I can see this section, and I'm just going to put a little weight over here so that it doesn't move. Okay, leaf A. Lift it up, take a look. It's right here. So if I look at that and then I print it back down, I can kind of see where it is. And you know what? Don't worry if your leaves are exactly perfectly in every place. I mean, leaves, it's blowing in the wind, right? The leaves are getting blown around. Maybe when I took my picture, the leaf was in one place and then the wind gust came by and the leaf moved when you took your picture, right? So now I can see the bottom of this leaf and I can kind of see where this branch goes up this way. So this is giving me a guide on where to position this part. Now over here, I can see some of the branch sticking up right there, sticking out to the side, right? So I've got these all in place pretty well. Now these ones might be a little trickier to figure out where they go, but looking through, let's see. Yeah, I can see that one. I'm just going to pick this one up and kind of let it fall. And if it falls a little to one side or another, I'm not going to worry too much about that. Just making sure it, you know, generally goes in the right place. So now let's put the rest of the leaves on. So here's B. And if you have to adjust them, again, you can. It's not fused right now. So let's find, where are these ones at? So I'm going to just take a look here. Move this up a little bit. So B, C, D, E, F, G. So we're working in this section over here. So put my guy back in place, make sure he's in the right place. Here's going to be B is like right over here, kind of like that. C. Okay, C is actually where I can see it. Huh? D. Oh, I'm going to get this label out of the way. And D, so I can see through here that the leaf was a little bit off, the branch was a little bit off. So I just moved it a little bit to put it in a better position where I can put that leaf where he's meant to go. Now, where's my little threads? Oh, here they are. Little threads sticking out. So E goes right here. F. And then G. And where was G? I don't remember. It's somewhere in the middle here, I think. Let's take a look. Oh, and I bumped my thing and I'm a little wonky, but that's okay. G, oh, it's right over here. So I'm just going to kind of stick that down. I'm not going to worry about that being perfect. So now H, I, J, K, L, M, N. So we're going to go in now in this area up here. So H, H is kind of right here. I, J, Okay, and you can also, if you want to, another thing you can always do is you can kind of have your picture right here too to reference. You know, that's sometimes helpful also for folks, is to, if it's hard to see through here and you really are like, I'm not sure, well, take a look at that too, because that will help you to see kind of where to position them. L is actually right here, and I can see part of it sticking out right over in that background. So I can get that one right in the right place. M. Oh, M is also right here. And N I can see too. And N, I need to move my little branch down a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, and that's it. So now, I'm gonna turn my light table off. So now we want to fuse everything well with steam followed by dry heat. So I'm gonna take my layout guide and step out from behind. And I know you can't really, because of the position here, the camera, see the whole body, but here's my face. And then is the branch and the body. If I go like this, you can see the whole thing, but he's sideways. So we're going to go ahead and do the fusing now so you can see what that process is. And then the next step on this guy would be, after it's fused, is to put your borders on and do your quilting and your binding and everything. So let's do the fuse first. So now that and again, before you do this, make sure everything's where you want it. If you have anything that you want to change, this is when you need to make that change. So take a look at it. If there's a leaf you don't like where it is, if there's any little something, you don't like his claw there, you don't like this one is in the wrong place, you can move that. Now, once you fuse, it's staying there. So make sure you're happy with everything. I am quite happy with everything. I think it looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start the fusing. Now you want your iron to be on a medium heat, whatever is medium for your iron. Make sure it's not too hot. And if it is too hot, you'll notice right away in this lighter birch piece that you will see some little dots show up if your iron is too hot. And that is from the fusible. And it's I always kind of say it's sort of overheating, frying the glue, and it's not giving it the moisture and the correct heat level to just sort of spread out underneath and fuse the whole thing. It's like it's too much and it doesn't give it an opportunity to go and go everywhere. So right now, the first thing we're going to do before we actually apply any sort of steam or anything is we're just going to put the iron down and up. My iron's just warming back up. Down and up. And all I'm doing right now is I'm warming up the glue and I'm getting it to kind of hold in place and getting those appliques to where they won't move. Because one of the things that I don't want is if I start pushing my iron around on it, I could end up where one of these little fur pieces curls up and sticks to the underside of my iron. So don't do any of this. I'm doing this above it. Just press and lift up. And press and lift up. Do not iron, only press right now. So I'm just getting it to kind of temporarily hold in the position that I want it. So I'm almost done with that. Okay, so now we're going to actually start doing the fusing part of that. So if you have a steam iron, you can steam with your iron. I have a untrustworthy iron and it spit a bunch of minerals on one of my designs one time and stained it a rust color. So I don't like my iron and I use instead a spray bottle. So if you have a steam iron, you can use that, or you can use a spray bottle to get the moisture into the fusible so that it permanently bonds well. If you're using your steam iron, you get your steam setting going and you just hit it with some steam for about 5 or 6 seconds. Blast it and then set it directly down on that for about another 8 to 10 seconds to let that steam evaporate. Then lift it up and do the next footprint of your iron the same way, holding that iron about within an inch of the top. Blast it with steam for 5 or 6 seconds, and then just set it directly down onto it. Let go, let the dry heat absorb all that moisture, and do the whole top. if you are using a spray bottle, as I am, we're going to spritz and get it really pretty good and wet. And then set the iron down and just leave it there for, again, about 8 to 10 seconds. So I'm not using my steamer because I don't trust this one. So I'm just going to use a spray bottle with dry heat. And I actually do pretty much all my stuff now that way. So then I'm going to lift and I'm just going to go to the next area. And then I'm going to spray next to it. And then lift and go to the next footprint. And again, I'm not doing any ironing. I'm just lifting, pressing, lifting, pressing. I don't want to accidentally catch something and then end up ruining one of my appliques. So lifting, pressing, lifting, pressing. And now in this lighter fabric, if you see any of those little dots, that, like I said, is an indication your iron is too hot. Turn your iron down, give it a few seconds to cool, and then continue on. Okay, so I'm just continuing all across the top. So this kind of gets a little boring. So I don't know that we'll do the entire thing right here, but essentially this is what you're going to do over the entire surface. Once you finish the top, I always recommend doing it again from the back. And the reason is because, like his face here, let's say his nose, right here in his nose, we have this white birch piece, we have the black piece, we have this dark gray, we have this amber color, and then we have this dark gray again, we have this blueberry, and we have this black. We have lots of layers in that nose. And so to make sure that that steam and that heat penetrated all the way to the layer that is actually stuck to your background, when you get finished, flip her over and repeat this whole process, especially in those areas where you know his face is right here. I'm going to do that whole thing again from the back to make sure that I really get that steam through the entire bear. And this side, you can do a little ironing if you want, because you don't have to worry about things sticking to it, but make sure you don't do that on the other side. So, okay, so I'm just going to stop there because you got the idea what you're doing. So we got our little bear guy done, and here's how it looks, the whole thing. And so now with quilting, what were you going to do for quilting? So what I recommend for quilting myself, or what I do, I guess I should say recommend. You can do anything you want. You can do decorative threads. You can make it extra fancy. You can add more little fur in there with colors, whatever you want to do. But if you are going to quilt and stitch on the appliques, make sure you're using a matching colored thread, or one that you don't, if you're going to put like another gray or something on here, it doesn't have to be black on black if you're trying to add texture or add other embellishments to it. But don't stitch with a clear thread on the appliques, because especially on lighter colors, the clear thread is just going to fill in clear where all the puncture spots are, and within the fusible it's going to leave little holes. And on lighter colors, you really notice it very, very, very well. It looks like little black dots all over the place. So because this fusible is very, very dependable to keep everything in place, especially in a wall hanging or a table runner, what I will do on wall hangings and table runners is I will just take my clear thread and I will stitch on the background, kind of echo quilting within like 1/8 of an inch though of the edge, going all the way around and just following around all the little appliques all the way around the body. And then occasionally, if I have like a big spot like this in the middle that I really feel like, I really need to put some stitching in here so it doesn't sag, then I might come in with like a matching colored thread of maybe just a black that just goes like down here, and just tack it down a little bit. So I also have a tips page on my website where I go through and I show pictures of how I do quilting with clear thread. So you're welcome to go on my website and check that out. I also have instructions on doing binding on the tips page too, if you need some help with that. But if you need help with your borders and stitching and stuff, utilize your local quilt shops. The people there are always very knowledgeable and should be able to help you with some of those kind of basics with doing borders and binding and things like that. So I think we're done, and I hope that you enjoy doing the black bear. He's one of my favorites. And oh, I never told the story of him, so I'll tell it really quick before we go. So I was inspired to do this one because I was driving back home from Cooper Landing to Kenai, and as I was in the mountains there, I had a black bear as I came around a corner in the road, and I startled him. I stopped, and he ran back up the hill next to us and went behind a birch tree and looked at me like, "You almost just hit me, lady." And so I just loved his expression, and I always remembered him peeking at me from behind that tree like, "I'm safe now, but you almost hit me." So when I did this one, it was inspired by that little black bear that I did not almost hit. I mean, he gave me the look like I did, but I did not almost hit him. But I was really excited to see him because I always loved seeing bears when I was up in Cooper Landing. So he's been one of my most popular designs, and I just adore him. So I hope that you guys have fun making it, and I will be back again for another tutorial soon.